And welcome into the latest edition of the RinkWise Podcast, presented by Seamans Media. I am your host and editor of New England Hockey Journal, Evan Marinofsky, and I am joined today by the great Andrew Will, the head coach at Salisbury. Andrew, welcome, and how are you?
I'm doing great, Evan. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. You and I, we see each other, even though you're down in Connecticut, we see each other a lot in the summer, in the spring, at rinks. It's just kind of that's our lives, and you've been doing this a lot longer than me. But it's just, constantly watching hockey and that's, I imagine your summers and falls are pretty busy with watching and taking it all in.
Yeah, it is. And as you're keenly aware, right, there's never a shortage of things going on in terms of events or showcases. And so for me and for all of us as prep coaches and those who are involved in the prep game, it's kind of a weekly thing to get out and get a sense of the landscape and the kids that are out there. And so that's obviously a fun part of the job, but a big part of that too is having a chance to run into good people when you're in the rinks. And love meeting you in the rink, but great to have a chance to talk here today too.
Yeah, it's good to get a kind of a long form conversation in. I'm curious your thoughts, because you have seen, and we'll get into your career in a bit, but you've seen hockey in the region change so much, right? You go through summer hockey, you go to fall, you have the prep season. Spring is kind of the rest time. There's obviously festival, but that's not towards the end of it. How has summer and fall hockey changed to help better prepare players for that prep season?
Yeah, and I think, one of those things is just the volume of events, right? There's so much more going on now in the summer and the fall than there used to be, but it's not always so much the quantity it's important. It's finding the quality stuff. And I think when I look at some of the stuff that players are doing through the summer months in particular, there used to be a real emphasis on showcases and kind of recruiting events. And there's still a big part of that, but I've been excited to see more and more players wanting to spend time in the summer working on skill development, working on, strength conditioning, utilize those summer months to really build that base, build that skill level, so that when they get to the fall, they get to their season, hopefully they're reaping the benefits of that. I think kids and families have been a little bit more selective. My sense is that, it used to be, hey, going to this camp this weekend, this showcase is the next weekend. And now families are a little bit more of, hey, going to target 2 or 3 key events, do those, and then spend a lot of the other time working on skills and training, strength conditioning. With fall hockey, that probably has been for me during my 16 years at the prep school level has changed the most. When I first started at Salisbury, the knapsack rule was, if you had pucks and sticks on the ice, you couldn't be wearing your equipment, and you could only do it on weekends. And now, with so many schools having kids having the ability to have access to their rinks during the fall, even though coaches can't be out there with them, the kids are skating a little bit more. And then just the evolution of split season, and whether it's the Beast League, the PPP, just the more opportunities. Yes, the number of games have gone up, the number of events have gone up, but I think just in terms of fall hockey going from strictly a prep for the start of the prep season to now it's very much a component of it. I think where for colleges, junior teams, and for the kids, they feel that's an important part of their recruitment process or cycle, getting themselves ready for the season, certainly. But I think it's also kind of situated itself where it's now instrumental in terms of the overall prep experience, kind of the before season part, to complement what's going on once we get going in November.
It's funny, you mentioned the PPP or I forget the exact acronym. It's acronym. It's sort of new. But you look at like, everyone talks about how prep hockey potentially might need to change, right? Getting the longer season to compete with the academies. It feels like, you have like Kimball Union playing together this fall. You have, Cushing with the Central Mass Penguins. Obviously, the kids in Metro Boston have their teams. It feels like, I think you and I have talked about this, just off camera before, but it feels like, as you kind of mentioned, that's sort of the extension of the prep season, that September to mid-November. Do you see that evolving into sort of, each prep team kind of getting their own fall team, or how do you see that changing, in the coming years?
Yeah, I think it's a great observation, and I think it is the trend, and I think you know there's some geography comes into play a little bit as you reference some of the Boston area schools, or just with some of the districts and youth programs, that it's a little bit easier for some places to have all their guys play together as a group. But I think that is the trend, where things are going. In what form and in what shape, that'll be, I think is going to play itself out. I am a believer that if you're standing still, you're being passed, and I do think for us as a body, it's important that we are proactive and are finding ways to enhance the experience for our kids, and also doing that within the confines of the NEPSAC rules and requirements that our governing body has. And so I think what people are doing is trying to appropriately push that envelope a little bit to provide a more development focus. And I think that's where when you have your team together, there's a little bit more of that development piece, because it's your team, like the Salisbury kids or the Cushing kids or the Kimball Union kids, that are having the opportunity to skate together during the week. But those split season teams aren't able to practice, right? So it's just game centered. And I think that, as coaches, the idea of having more of our guys together on a group playing together, building that chemistry, building that camaraderie, team unity, I think all those things are exciting for how that helps us with hitting the ground running with the prep season, but also I think, is a way to enhance the split season experience for the guys. So I do think that's seems to be a little bit of the trend, and I think we've seen that a little bit more kind of in central New England and out east, but I think it's coming out our way in the west a little bit as well.
And the other thing is that is really interesting with fall, and I was doing a story recently on sort of the differences between fall and prep for college recruiting, and there were some assistant coaches in the college world who said, well, fall hockey's sort of gotten watered down a bit. You have more teams, you have sometimes some more events. It's harder. You have to go a little further to find different kids. There's more spread out. Obviously, you see this, kids want to be on a team where they can stand out rather than just be on a stacked team. You even see that in prep. Do you think that fall hockey has watered down a bit in the past couple years, or is it a good thing that there are lots of different teams, or is there a happy medium?
Yeah. So, one of the things we all joke about working in prep schools is we wear different hats, right? Teacher, dorm parent, coach.
You do a lot.
Whatever it may be. But I think there's some different ways to look at split season, and the college coaches, rightly so, are looking at it through the lens of, hey, how am I getting the best viewing opportunities to evaluate kids, and it's kids playing high level competition, and ideally not at 10:15 on Saturday night in Marlboro.
I agree with that.
So there's that piece. You put your prep school person hat on and you look at, okay, we have at our school, between our varsity team, our JV team, you've got well over 50 kids who are really excited about hockey. And so all those kids want to play split season. All those kids are looking for ways to, have a little bit more of a robust hockey experience during prep school. They're looking for ways to continue their development. They're looking for ways to hopefully grab the attention of college coaches and junior coaches. So I would say there are more people, more kids that are looking to play split season. And so that leads to what you're talking about, I think, is a little bit of a watering down, where you have more teams, and you've got the national bound teams, you've got the showcase teams. And so, with the way it's set up, and, not particularly tiered in terms of competitive level, it does water it down a little bit. So in terms of the opportunities and more kids being able to take advantage of it, I think that's a good thing. But in terms of what we hear as prep coaches from the college guys as well, is that there aren't as many quality viewing opportunities, where there just don't seem to be as many high quality games, or teams aren't necessarily as strong top to bottom as people perceive they were 5-10 years ago.
Well, everyone always says the past is better than now. Oh, things used to be so much better back in the day, and now it's not. But I see I do see it. You see some games where you're like, oh, there's a lot of teams here, and you wonder how many good teams are there. So I want to get into your career, because it's fascinating. So I know the story of how you got to Salisbury, but I would love for you to tell it, because I think it's a cool story, and it's just one of those examples of, it's so hard to predict the future. So tell us a little bit about how you got to Salisbury.
Yeah. And I'll start by saying how fortunate I feel to be here and have, this opportunity. And, it goes back to a conversation that I had with Chiz Chandler, the former head of school here at Salisbury. And at the time I was teaching English and coaching hockey at Upper Canada College, a prep school up in Toronto. And I had moved back to Toronto after 5 years coaching Division I hockey. I coached at RPI and at Union, and then went back home and was coaching there. And Mr. Chandler gave me a call. Dan Donato at the time was the coach here at Salisbury, and he had just taken the job at Dexter. And through the hockey connections, right? Kevin Patrick, who's out at Culver Academy now, was the assistant coach with me at Union for 3 years, and he and Mr. Chandler were friends from their prep school days. Mr. Chandler was a Hotchkiss guy. Kevin Patrick was the Deerfield guy, and they both had got into coaching and had coached against each other. And so, long story short, as Mr. Chandler was trying to come up with a list of potential replacements for Dan Donato, KP gave him my name. And so when Mr. Chandler called, it was later in the spring, and I had actually just started dating my now wife. We had probably been dating about 8 weeks or so, and the idea of moving to Connecticut, starting a long distance relationship, plus I did not feel very comfortable leaving UCC in the lurch in May. I said to Mr. Chandler, I really appreciate the opportunity, but unfortunately I just don't think the timing is right. And I remember him saying to me, well, what if we were to wait a year? And I thought he was being nice. I thought he was being, just kind. And I was like, well, if we wait a year, yeah, I would definitely be interested in revisiting this conversation, never expecting it to actually happen. And sure enough, Matt Corkery, who had already been here as a longtime Salisbury coach, stepped in on an interim basis for a year. Mr. Chandler circled back around with me about 6 months later. I was engaged to my now wife then at that point, and we jumped at the opportunity to come down here. So it was kind of a unexpected turn of events, but one that extremely thankful for and appreciative of.
And didn't you expect to only be there a couple of years, and then now it's 16 and
yeah, so
quite a while.
Yeah. So my wife is, she's from the Toronto area too. And she had played soccer in the US, and So she had a great experience, and we were newly engaged, no kids. We said, hey, we'll go to Salisbury. We'll do 3 to 5 years. We had a plan, right? And we come back home, start a family with aunts and uncles and cousins, and 16 years and 2 daughters later, we're still here and loving it.
Hey, it's Bobby Moran, Director of Athletics at Thayer Academy. You know what? Experience matters, and Thayer Academy's professional coaching staff understands how to work with each student athlete to help them succeed. Our coaches and faculty are committed to ensuring both 5th to 12th graders feel known, connected, and prepared. This is Thayer's secret sauce, nurturing each student to reach their full potential. Here, success is truly a team sport. Are you ready for your child to take the next step? See what Thayer has to offer at thayer.org. That's THAYER.org.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Because you spent a good amount of time at the Division I level. We'll get to the winning and the success you guys have had on the wins and losses side, but on the player development side, you've had equal number of successes. How did that time spent at the Division I level, how did that help your perspective when it came to developing kids a little bit younger at the prep level at Salisbury?
Yeah, I really found that experience was so helpful and important for me just developmentally, because I went right from playing, did 2 years in the East Coast League after my career at Union, and then jumped right into coaching at the college level. And so, really didn't know a whole lot about coaching and development, and really am thankful to Kevin Snedden at the time who hired me, working with KP at the time. And a big part of that experience was I was responsible for working with our players, kind of skill development stuff in the mornings with them and before class. And so got to spend a lot of time with guys in kind of those small groups, 1, 2, 3 guys out on the ice together. And it gave me a whole new appreciation for, trying to meet each guy where they are and understanding kind of strengths that they have, areas of improvement, but also maybe even more importantly, just finding ways to communicate, connect, get ideas across to guys. And I think, how things are perceived when you're trying to explain or work with a guy on something isn't always necessarily the way that guy is receiving that information.
Yeah.
And so, for me, that was really important time for me to kind of learn that lesson. And obviously I've learned a lot from a ton of people since then about, skill development and understanding the game way better. And the game's changed a lot during that time. But I think about those mornings, at Achilles Rink at Union and working with those guys in those situations and how important that was for me as a coach to learn to communicate and be specific, but also listen and observe what the kids were giving back to me as a coach and to us as a staff.
How much has that skill development stuff changed over the last 20 years? Like, I feel like the game has obviously become more skill-based and speed-based than physicality-based. But, it feels like over the last last 10 years, that skill development has become a huge thing. How much has that changed for you just at Salisbury and kind of what you focus on with those kids?
Yeah, it's changed considerably. And, I think like a lot of things, it's a little bit of a pendulum, right? And how players see it versus how coaches see it. change, varies a little bit. But I think, when I started here, we probably weren't nearly as intentional with emphasizing, prioritizing skill development. We'd set aside a little bit of time, say we'd set aside 20 minutes on Thursday for some intentional skill development work. We went 0 for 5 on the power play on Wednesday, and all of a sudden I needed more power play time. So I gobble up some of that time. And, as a coaching staff, it was about 5-6 years ago, we said, what, if we're going to say we prioritize and emphasize development, we've got to make sure that we carve out that time, and the repetition, the confidence that the kids get out of that repetition is going to pay dividends over the course of a season. And so now, on Mondays and Thursdays, we designate time, win 3-0, lose 3-0, 0 for 10 on the power, but it doesn't matter. That's sacred time. And so, I think by us prioritizing it as a staff, the kids prioritize it. And I do think it's a little bit different too, in terms of, there's you hear it all the time, and guys are talking about in the rinks about, going around cones and apparatus, and is that game-like versus just individual skill development? And I think there's a balance. And for us, a lot of the skill development stuff we emphasize and focus on is taking those individual skills and applying them to game situations. And so, hey, working with our forwards, here's some of the skills, whether it's pulling pucks off the wall, catch and release, and not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but we're creating situations, we're creating small area situations where they're now applying that skill that they're going to experience in a game. And so it's kind of, I think, taken that strong emphasis that a lot of the kids have in the off season on working on some of that important individual skill, fundamental skill stuff, and how does that apply? How does it translate to their play in a game, which I think is ultimately the most important thing, because we all see kids who can skate like the wind, shoot it a ton, best hands, but how does that show itself? How do they apply that in the game? And those two things don't always go together. So we're really trying to prioritize and emphasize that aspect of skill development.
Can you put it all together? That's the biggest thing.
There you go. Yeah.
Can you mesh it and make it work? And your teams have made it work. It's 5 Elite Eights, right? You guys have 5 Elite Eight titles since you started? 09, 13, 14, 15, 22. Do I have that correct?
Yeah. So we've won. So I think my first year, I don't think it was the Elite Eight. We won 6 New England championships since I've been here. I think it's 5 Elite Eights. Mm-hmm. That first year, the 08, 09 year, I believe was, I think the final year of the old format, and then we've moved into the 3 tournament situation. So it's been a fun run, and obviously been around some great coaches and great players here at the school.
Why do you think? I mean, Salisbury's always been good. It was good under Donato, who's still at Dexter. Like, what do you think it has been about you and your staff over the last 16 years that has made not Salisbury not just successful, but successful wins and losses? I know we've talked skill development, but successful in bringing in solid players and making them even better. What has it been about, do you think, that you and your staff have done right to kind of make that a possibility?
Well, I think I would start with what you said there, just in terms of it's got to begin with the players and as you know, at the prep school level too, the families and mm-hmm. I think we've been really fortunate to attract talented players, but for me, there's no shortage of talented players. It's finding players who have that ability, but also have the right attitude, approach, commitment, mindset, and buy-in and willingness to be a part of something a little bit bigger than themselves. And I think we've been really fortunate as a staff, really fortunate as a school, and intentional, I would say, in both those areas to try and attract those types of kids and families. And I think it's really important to acknowledge a lot of the coaches that I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work with here. Nate Riddell going back to my first year, and Matt Corkery for a long stretch. Brian Finney, who's now at Belmont Hill. John Toffey, who's at Winchendon, and then
you went against Finney in the 22 Elite Eight, his first year at Belmont Hill. That must have been something, huh?
Yeah, that was so much fun, and probably a little bit more fun because it worked out for us.
I get that.
But he's a phenomenal coach, and more importantly, he's a great friend, and I'm not surprised with the success that Brian's had at Belmont Hill in a really short period of time. And then Kirk Calling, Will Leedy, and Charlie Strauss, who are the three guys who, work with me here, and their knowledge of the game, their dedication and commitment, and their buy-in to really, emphasize. We talked about the skill development piece, but I think the other piece, and I know it's kind of the word of the day, but it's that culture piece, and I really think that has been instrumental in terms of our success as a program and what we've tried to do. And we've been very excited about being in championship games and coming out on the right side of a lot of them. And we want to continue to do that. And but that's not our primary goal, right? Our primary goal is how are we helping our kids develop and grow on and off the ice each and every day, so that when we do step out on the ice on Wednesday and on Saturday, they have the confidence, they have kind of the understanding of what they need to do individually and collectively to go out and give ourselves a chance to win each day. And if we focus on those things that we can control, we've had that consistency in terms of expectation, in terms of execution, and also that accountability piece. I think that gives you a good opportunity on those game days to go out and have something good happen. And so, for us, again, it really is a process-based thing. We don't really talk about winning a championship or winning this game on a given day. We know that's the goal, but it's about how and what do we need to do as a group to be able to give ourselves a chance to achieve that goal on the short term and also the long term for the season. And that really has been our approach going back to when I got here, and I think it very much aligns with our school and the type of community we have here at Salisbury.
Almost that championships are a byproduct of focusing on being good people, being well-rounded people. And it's an interesting thing because I feel like a lot of players that go on to higher levels, whether it be college or the NHL, and teams that consistently win championships, it feels like the focus is, let's turn our kids into well-rounded people who are, good in every area, good academically, good people, good on the ice, good off the ice. It feels like that's become a very popular thing in the last couple of years, along with that culture piece. Has that changed at all? Has that changed your style or your goals at Salisbury at all? Or has that always been kind of a goal of yours? Like, hey, we need to have these kids be as well-rounded as possible.
Yeah. I agree with you in that. I think that's become a little bit more of a priority and emphasis in recent years. For me, I feel that's always been kind of my approach as a coach. And I go back to I think I learned a lot of that from my parents, and my dad was a high school English teacher and a high school football coach. And oddly enough, I've never played a game of football in my life.
I was going to say, have you ever played football? But you haven't. Wow.
No, I was a hockey baseball guy. And, growing up, there wasn't Pop Warner football or anything. So by the time you started playing in high school, and by then it was too late. So, but, both my parents were high school teachers, and, even though hockey was really important in my life and they supported me tremendously on that front, it was all about hey, you gotta put in the effort in school. You got to put in the effort in your community and family. We had 3 siblings, and we all had to pull our weight. And so for me, the idea of not just being good in one area of my life was something that they emphasized from day one, that this idea that truly successful people don't really get to pick and choose when they work hard or what they're going to commit themselves to. That you may not like chemistry as much as you like going to practice, and it doesn't mean you got to get A+ necessarily, but you gotta put in the work, and you've got to, if you're struggling, go see the teacher for extra help, and utilize the resources that are there for you and take advantage of those. And I think for me, that's been something we've always tried to emphasize here, is we don't want guys who are only interested in working hard and performing well down at the rink. We want guys to obviously excel down there and be motivated and eager to learn, but we want guys who really prioritize doing well in the classroom, and important to be contributing members of our school community. And Jared Rothman, who's a senior for us this year, is our student body vice president. Justin DeLucia was our student body president last year, and could go down the line over the 15 years and have had a lot of guys who are some of our top students on campus, both in terms of academic performance and also in kind of the social community aspect of the school. And so for me, that piece has always been, it's been ingrained in me all the way along. And that's certainly something that I was hoping to have be a part of our program here at Salisbury. And that certainly has been, and I think it fits really well with the culture of our school too.
Do you want to skate fast? For 50 years, Laura Stam instructors have taught youth players to pros how to skate correctly, powerfully, and fast. Players who attend Laura Stam power skating programs learn how to skate fast by learning how to execute every maneuver in hockey. They become powerful, stable, efficient, and explosively fast skaters. If you can't wait for a clinic, join our subscription skills video service, and we'll show you the skills taught at our clinics in an easy-to-use video format with training plans to guide your training. Register or subscribe now at laurastam.com. That's LauraStamm.com. You can learn to skate fast.
I want to get to the current team in a second, but I want to ask you about some bigger picture things, because I think you have a fascinating outlook on it. Prep hockey, I mean, we kind of touched on it at the beginning with kind of the fall scene and how that's changing. Do you think prep hockey needs to evolve in any way, or is it kind of good as it is right now?
Yeah, I do think prep hockey would really benefit from evolving a little bit. And I very much believe and respect the tradition of prep school hockey, of NEPSAC hockey, and I think that that structure has been really, really successful for so many kids and families over the years. At the same time, I think times are changing, right? When 15 years ago, kids were playing 3 sports, right? We had, Danny Biega, my first year here, played varsity soccer, plays varsity hockey, and rows in the first boat at our school. Goes to Harvard and plays some games in the NHL, and his career is cut short by concussions. But the world today, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing, but kids just aren't doing that, right? That the way this youth sports, they've got to decide, am I going to be a soccer player? I'm going to be a hockey player really young, because the soccer coach wants his kids 12 months of the year. And so, we have kids who play 2 sports, but this idea of 3 sports is really, in a lot of ways antiquated. And I think, these schools offer a lot, but it's a big commitment on the part of families to have their kids go to these schools. And I think, in terms of really meeting what a lot of the families are hoping for from this experience, I think there's an opportunity for prep hockey and I think prep athletics in general to evolve a little bit, to kind of match what our families and what our kids want in 2023, not the way it was in 1983. And so, it's a complicated issue, right? Because you do something in one sport, it impacts other sports. There's the question of boys and girls and equity and all those things. So it's I don't have all the answers, and there's a lot of layers to work through. But I do think at the core, what we offer, to me, is such a phenomenal model in terms of athletics, hockey specifically, being tied to the school and academics and the school calendar, and the students being a part of the school community and culture, and not a group of 25 students that go off on weekends and are doing online stuff, or that it's they're really integrated into the school. But the prep season is short, and we're really limited in how much we're able to work with the kids, how often, and the frequency of it. And so I think, you alluded to academies and, the tier 1 and AAA and all those different competing junior hockey, all those competing models that are out there. I think what we can offer, if we were to evolve a little bit, could be better than almost all of them. And that's not to say we're going to be more competitive than junior leagues, because those kids are older. And but in terms of working with those kids between kind of 15 and 19, 15 and 18, I think there's room for us to grow and make what I think is a phenomenal product even better for our kids and families.
And it has the history to it too, which you alluded to. It's interesting. Over the summer at Bruins development camp, I was talking to Ryan Walsh, a former player of yours, and he was very complimentary of you, and it was great to catch up with him. And he's off at Cornell this year, which is great. After I think he was second in the USHL in points last year with Cedar Rapids, only behind Macklin Celebrini. That's pretty good company to be in. But he was saying to me how, I asked him about, because this past NHL draft for kids directly out of prep, getting drafted straight from prep, getting picked by NHL teams, I think it was only 2. Now, the year before was more than that. But he was saying how, prep has, he was kind of saying like, prep is more so preparing you for juniors in college than it is for you to get drafted to the NHL. Do you think do you think prep has changed, or was last year kind of just a quote unquote down year for prospects, NHL draft prospects?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wrestle with it, because I don't know that, I can say definitively one way or the other, in terms of, I do think last year was down year in terms of that high end draft eligible talent. But if to go back a couple of years, I would, and I can't remember necessarily the number, but there's been years where there's 7, 8, 9, 10 prep school kids getting drafted. So I think there is a bit of a cyclical thing. But I do think that, with some of those higher end caliber kids that, would traditionally come to prep school, I think as a group, we're not attracting those kids as much anymore, because they do want to play a longer season. They do want to position themselves, for getting to the USHL and then off to college a little bit quicker. And so, some of those higher end guys who may be draft eligible, I think it's fair to ask the question, are as many of them playing prep school hockey as they used to? And I also think that, tied to that, it goes together, is, NHL guys, and when they're evaluating players, like, okay, so I know what the USHL competition is. The prep school competition can vary greatly from Wednesday to Saturday. And so I think sometimes there's a little bit more confidence in evaluating player and saying, hey, I know what I'm getting out of a guy who's played a year junior hockey versus a guy who's maybe going through the prep ranks. And, I think there's a percentage of kids, Johnny Beecher, who played, he was going to get drafted, whether he played a year at Salisbury in the national, it didn't matter where he was going to play, or Matt Coronado. Like, there are those types of guys where, they do come to prep school and then they move on. But I think, Ryan Walsh is a great example of that. When he came in as a repeat junior, I don't necessarily think he or many people thought of him as a potential NHL draft pick. And I'm not saying it's because of us. I mean, he did the work, he put in the time, and was such a dedicated kid. And you talk about well-rounded, I mean, in all areas of life for that guy. But the time that prep gave him, right, to work on his body with the full season and a little bit of a lighter schedule in the gym and the weight room, the opportunity to develop his skills, the ability to be a guy who plays a prominent role on a competitive prep school team, gave him confidence, put him in situations that he took advantage of, that translated to him going off and having that success in the USHL last year. So, I think, again, not to be cliche about it, but each guy is running his own race and they fall into different categories. But I do think that that is a challenge in terms of prep school and where we are right now, that high end piece may not be drawn here as much with some of the other options that are out there and some of the limitations that go along with the prep schedule and season.
And you still see a lot of those higher end kids come when they're younger, like that. I think that is still very much there.
Yeah.
Speaking of high end talent, your team this year, what is the outlook on this group, and who are some of the players we should be keeping an eye on at every position? Yeah.
So, we're really excited about the season. We feel we've got a terrific nucleus of guys that are back from last year's team. I think it was and you and I think spoke about this before, even though, on paper was a little bit of a down year for us. We felt we really came together as a group and got as much out of that group as we were able to, and to be one of 6 teams playing on that last Sunday was something we were really excited about. And we'd love to be in the Elite 8, and that's a goal we have for this coming year. But those guys learned a lot and gained some real valuable experience. And then I think to complement them, we've got some real exciting young guys coming in to join us. So, when I look at some of our guys up front, with our leadership with Seamus Lada, up front, and Jared Rothman, who's, Seamus is one of our captains and Jared's one of our assistant captains. And then on the back end with Anthony Biaka-Batuka and Ty Creech, our 2 other captains, are just, 4 of, I think, a number of really impactful guys up front. And Cooper Fleming is back for us in net, which we're really excited about. He played about 50% of our games last year and had a strong season, and excited about him taking that next step in his development. So, those guys plus our incoming guys, I think, are going to be, exciting to work with. They're hungry, they're eager, they're I think really open and receptive to getting better and learning. And so we can't wait to get started.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, it's interesting. You mentioned down year, quote unquote down year. It was you guys kind of got hot at the end, and you guys really. I remember we were talking about it. You sort of found your game at the perfect time, and a lot of those kids are back. So I'm very excited to see what you guys are able to do this year, and you guys are always in the thick of it all the time. So no surprise there, but. Andrew, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate your insight and your outlook on this. And I think the insight and outlook's only going to get better with this overtime segment. What do you think, Yaz? This is going to be pretty good.
Well, when you said, speaking of high-end talent, producer Dave was ready to do my normal segment.
Exactly.
But you were actually talking about Andrew's club, which is probably more appropriate. So yes, it's time for overtime, where I lob some questions both to our guest and to Evan. Typically, these are just kind of get to know you questions, but I was inspired to do something a little bit different today. And so what we have here is a quiz. You each get 3 questions, and the quizzes are on the names of minor league hockey teams. So what I'm going to give you, it's,
oh boy.
Now it's multiple
like
choice. It's multiple choice. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance to start off. So we'll start with you, Coach, and we'll take you to the Adirondack franchise in the UHL. So tell me, is it the Adirondack Avalanche? Is it the Adirondack Frostbite? Or is it the Adirondack patio chairs?
It's got to be C, right? The patio. That'd be a great jersey.
Well, the one that I had in my head, you didn't mention. So I feel like I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, and I'm going to go with A.
I'm afraid it is, in fact, the Adirondack Frostbite, if you can believe it. So,
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So kudos to that strange name. But
Andrew, I had the same thought. I was like, oh, it's got to
Yeah.
be the Avalanche.
Yeah.
And by the way, that team is co-owned by Barry Melrose and Steve Levy of ESPN. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
All right, Evan, next one is for you. We take you to Grand Rapids in the IHL. Is it the Grand Rapids Gophers? Is it the Grand Rapids Griffins? Or is it the Grand Rapids Giants?
I'm gonna say it's Griffins. It's Griffins. B is my answer.
You're absolutely correct, Evan. Well done. And you get an extra point because my son's name is Griffin, which is why I included
There
this
you go.
name.
I like that.
All right, Coach, back to you. We take you to sunny Florida and Orlando, still in the IHL. Is it the Orlando Sandy Pucks? Is it the Orlando Sunburn? Or is it the Orlando Solar Bears?
It's the Solar Bears. I know
It is,
that
in
one.
fact, the Solar Bears. Well done,
Yep.
Coach. Yeah.
I went to their training camp actually one year.
Is that right?
Oh wow, nice.
Back in the IHL. Yep.
All right. We go to you, Evan, and Kentucky in the AHL. Is it the Kentucky Thoroughblades, the Kentucky Fried Puckmen, or the Kentucky Shots? Sponsored by Maker's Mark.
I didn't know there was an AHL team in Kentucky, but
Yep.
since I don't know, I'm gonna go with the Fried Puckman. I gotta be fun with it.
Good guess, but I made that one up. It's the Kentucky Thoroughblades.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Weird name. I think they've got, since it's the heart of bourbon country there, they should just be the Shots. Come on.
Yeah.
That's a nice little double meaning there.
I like that.
All right. Coach, back to you. Amarillo of the CHL. Is it the Amarillo Armadillos, the Amarillo Tumbleweeds, or the Amarillo Gorillas?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to go with the Armadillos.
No,
I'm not
sorry.
feeling good.
It's the Gorillas.
Gorillas.
Of
That
course-
is
of course
so
it is.
random.
Wow.
Apparently, in this part of Texas, they pronounce the name of their town Amarilla. So it comes out Amarilla Gorillas. All right. Evan, last one is for you, and you better get it right, and or the coach will be disappointed in you, and I'll explain why later. There's a little Easter egg hidden here.
Oh boy.
Evan, we take you to Mobile, Alabama of the ECHL. Is it the Mobile Misfits, the Mobile Massacre, or the Mobile Mystics?
Oh God. I'll say, is it the Misfits?
Coach?
No, it's the Mobile or Mobile Mystics.
Mystics.
Mobile Mystics. Yep.
And Andrew knows that because you were a member of that team for a couple seasons. If I'm
I
not
was.
All
Might have actually been called the Misfits when I was down there. But,
it is.
The Mystics, yeah.
Well, right, and it's spelled MYSTICKS, so you get the play on words there. Thank you for indulging me for this wacky trip through minor league hockey, and we get some Kentucky Fried Puckmen and bourbon for you guys later.
Yeah,
congratulations.
I would love that. We both did. Well, we both 1 for 3. That was
we don't keep score here on RinkWise. It's not about winning; it's about how you play the game.
It's about
It's
having
the effort. There you go.
You're 100% right. But Andrew, this has been a blast. I will have to have you on in the future again, and I'm sure you and I will see each other at the rinks quite a bit. So again, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm Evan Marinofsky. This has been New England Hockey Journal's RinkWise, a Seamans Media production.